BYU basketball opens the season tonight in Las Vegas. It's a top tier showdown. I know that Villanova may not be the same level that they were, just a handful of years ago under Jay Wright, winning national titles and the like, but it is still a name opponent and the first of several on BYU's non-conference slate. The biggest thing to know about this game is that BYU basketball, they're ready to rock and roll. Kevin Young, talking to the media on Friday, you could tell that he is just ready to get things going. He talked about the fact that he wants to see college basketball, push more towards an NBA preseason style where you play multiple exhibition games like BYU did against Nebraska and North Carolina. He'd like to say 4, maybe 5 of those type games in the lead up to the start of the season because he's so used to the NBA schedule where you play 82 regular season games and it feels like you have a game almost every other day. Whereas in college basketball, you spend literally month upon months getting yourselves ready against one another to play games once, maybe twice a week. BYU opens up tonight against Villanova. It'd be 7:30 Mountain Time. And I am excited to see how BYU handles things when it comes to going into this matchup, because the biggest thing is the Cougars are decided favorite in this game. Our friends at FanDuel, as of recording this podcast, have BYU as an 8.5-point favorite. I would actually have them as double-digit favorites. If you look at KenPom ratings, Villanova is number 50, whereas BYU is right in the teens right now, according to our friend Ken Pomeroy. And he also has this as the number 2 game, essentially, of the night in terms of the opening slate of games tonight. There's a lot of, obviously, dog games, money games, and the like. For example, Utah State, they're welcoming Westminster to Utah State up in Logan. Now, Westminster is a local program, but they are Division II. Utah, for example, is hosting San Jose State. So there's not a lot of marquee games out there, and BYU's getting one of them as they play the second game of doubleheader with Florida, Arizona as the early game, and then obviously BYU and Villanova in the nightcap. And the good news is, by the way, if you're a YouTube TV subscriber, it's on TNT. None of this ESPN nonsense we have to deal with. I'm still a little bit jaded about the fact that YouTube TV is killing me here, but nonetheless, you'll still be able to watch it if you're a YouTube TV subscriber. The other thing is KenPom's rankings right now have BYU as number 18, and I think that's a fair assessment of where BYU stands going into the season. Some of you are saying, well, they're ranked number 8 in the preseason poll, Jake. Yes, they are. But I think that KenPom looks deeper than just perception of this team. What I love about Ken Pomeroy's numbers is they take essentially the whole look at what a roster comprises of, returning production, and he will tell you straight up, because I've known Ken for many, many years, that his numbers early on in the season are going to be skewed heavily simply due to the fact you have a bunch of big whales, for example, going up against a bunch of minnows because they're money games. Games like Villanova are actually games that'll give you a pretty accurate reading in terms of the early run this season for BYU, and I'm looking forward to this. A couple of names to know for Villanova if you want names to know about. I think it's Caden Lewis. He's a top 50 recruit. He's a pretty good player. I don't think he's on the same level as a Rob Wright in terms of point guards because he's a guard for this Villanova team. But I also look at this as a new look Villanova squad because some of you may remember that they fired their head coach Kyle Neptune at the end of last season, or actually may have been earlier on in the season, but they come in with Kevin Willard, who's the former Maryland coach. And the one thing that I know about what Kevin Willard has done as a coach, he's got very good defensive players, none more so than what we had from Mawit Mag a season ago, because Mawit Mag played 4 years at Maryland for said Kevin Willard, and I think it was Kevin Willard, maybe it wasn't, but nonetheless, you get the point is, no, he was, and I think, no, it wasn't. Kevin Willard, retract all of that. Kevin Willard talked about Mawit Mag, saying that Mawit Mag was the best defender, on-ball defender he had seen in quite some time. So apologies for that gaffe there. But the bigger point is he knows how to coach correct defensive principles, and his teams are kind of built on playing sound defense. Do I expect that with a new-look Villanova squad that he's going to have it all situated by night one? Well, I sure hope not, because that would spell some pretty tough goings for BYU in this game. But at the same time, this BYU team, they're looking forward to getting things going here. I can tell you from what it sounds like, these players are eager to start playing ball. The other player I was going to mention is Bryce Lindsey. He's another guard for Villanova. He was the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year and the Sixth Man of the Year at James Madison last year. Pretty good player in his own right, but there are two players in particular that they do not have, at least due to injuries, according to what Kevin Willard said, is Devin Askew and Zion Stanford. They are both unavailable for tonight's game, and that's a break for BYU, considering Askew averaged 19 points per game for Long Beach State a season ago, and Stanford was Temple's leading scorer last year, averaging 13 points a game. So those are two big guns that Villanova will not have in this game, and that should give BYU, in theory, a pretty decided advantage in this game. And I expect from BYU side of things, it's not going to be perfect. And I would expect in some ways a lot of what we saw against North Carolina, hopefully not with as much dribbling as we saw from guys like Rob Wright III. I want to see Rob be more decisive with the ball in his hands. Use the pick and roll with Kevin Keita. Make sure you dish it off to guys like Richie Saunders and AJ Dybantsa and give them the opportunity to run this offense, because I'm telling you, Rob Wright III is capable of taking over a game in a big moment, but doesn't he take over every possession? I want to see BYU play with the pass. I said it after the North Carolina game. I want to see BYU pass the ball and share it. I think the assist numbers tonight will tell us a lot about how much BYU took out of that North Carolina game and how much they've implemented in the time they've had to practice leading up to this opener against Villanova. Because if they have let's say 20 plus assists on, let's say it's 25 or 30 made field goals, that's a good number. Now, if it's in the teens, that's a little different. That's more of what we kind of saw with the one-on-one ISO ball from AJ and Rob that we saw a lot of the time against North Carolina. I'm not saying the ISO ball doesn't have its place, because there are going to be instances this season that BYU is going to need guys who can just simply generate a shot. And that's what AJ and Rob Wright III are there for, because they're capable of generating said offense. But this is a team, speaking of Kevin Young's program, that if last year's any indication, what we saw last year was a team that played as a team and went as a team. If they can do that, I got faith that BYU is going to handle their business and be very, very good in this game, and also very, very good this season. But it all starts tonight. Villanova and BYU in Las Vegas, and I'll be tuned in at 7:30 watching the Cougars play, and we'll do a postcast immediately after this game to give you guys my initial thoughts on what I took away from the season opener for BYU. It's just hopefully that they're 1-0 after that game goes final. All right, that is going to do it for today's edition of the show. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk with Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech. Yes, it's early in the week to do a crossover edition of the show, but Chris is a very busy man, as am I, and it's a big week, so we figured, you know what, let's get it out of the way early, and we'll have that for you guys bright and early tomorrow morning, talking all things BYU and Texas Tech from both of our respective positions on this game. But huge week ahead. BYU basketball in action, obviously the huge game with BYU football, and we'll have it all covered for you guys every single day right here on Locked On Cougars. So as always, please continue to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have not done so already on YouTube, click that like button right now, thumbs up. Even at the end of the show, it still helps the algorithm out. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and we'll catch you guys again tomorrow. All of you everydayers right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.